Welcome to the Authentic Man podcast. I am your host, David Chambers. This is a podcast for men who want more and less from life. More deep connection, more emotional intelligence, more self-awareness, and more great sex. And less heartache, less conflict, less overthinking, and less stress. Creating dating lives, sex lives, and relationships that are incredible and authentic. My deepest goal is that you, the listener, can take away what you hear in this podcast and apply it to your life so that you can experience greater happiness, transformational growth, deeper relationships, and profound sexual intimacy. I believe that as men, we are capable of so much more depth than we are shown or led to believe. So join me as we get deep into this. Welcome, listeners. I'm your host, David Chambers, and this is the Authentic Man podcast. Another wonderful episode 99, actually, quite a special number. And yeah, talking about a topic that, I talk a lot about my coaching within, dating and relationships, this masculine and feminine energy that we need to be aware of. But I got a really special guest in this week, someone who I've really enjoyed speaking to her through Instagram Live and interacting with her content and so forth over the last, 9 months, maybe even a year. Who knows with time these days, it just kind of flies by, right? But we talk about masculine and feminine energy inside of business. If you're running a business or you're working in a business, which is basically all of us, right, in some capacity, there is this masculine and feminine energy that's at play to, reach this kind of union of amazing creativity and productivity as well. And ultimately, if you're in a corporate structure, you'll probably find that everything is very masculine. There's lots of structure, there's lots of rules, there's lots of regulations, there's lots of performance targets and blah, 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 blah. But that maybe that often stifles the creativity, the flow, the intuition, the spontaneity. And we really get into this episode. We talk about how to actually, how to kind of nurture some of those feminine aspects when we're working, whether that's in our own businesses, like myself running my own business here, or you're working in someone else's business. So this is really valuable to everybody, right? And, if you listen really closely, you can even listen to where you can make this relevant inside your relationship as well. And, Sabi's amazing. She's a self-love and feminine embodiment coach, as well as I know she does a lot of coaching for women around businesses and helping them really create a beautiful business that they love working in and love being part of, which, don't we all want to have a little bit more of that in our lives? So yeah, it's a great episode. I've listened to it, obviously. I was part of it, right? So I was there. But there's some other businesses. I've got a workshop I'm doing, which should basically be pretty much today, if you're listening to this, which is around creating the spark inside the dating world. If you're a single man, this is a perfect workshop for you to show you how to create, deep and meaningful connections in your dating life, especially on your dates, because I know this is something that a lot of men struggle with because they call me up and we have coaching calls. And so I know it's still a thing. So yeah, if you're interested, just pop down to the show notes and the details will be there. But yeah, this episode's beautiful. We talk about what masculine and feminine is, what it looks like in the business as well. And, how to see if it's lacking and how to create more business ideas, which is something, I think we're all interested in. And also something we talk about is how we can use our businesses, especially our personal businesses, but even businesses we work in, to help us heal the wounds of our forefathers, our ancestry, or even, what's come up in our childhood, because they're really, businesses, being in a business and working for yourself is actually an opportunity to do that. And it's something that we don't always remember when it comes to business. So yeah, it's a beautiful episode. And like I said, great for everybody. Next week is a really special episode because it's the 100th episode of the podcast. And for that, I've actually recorded the episode already. It's me and Orsa. We're going to be sitting down and talking about kind of our relationship, but from the guise of like what a conscious relationship looks like and our journey through that. So, be really tuned into picking that up, because it's a really good episode. It's really beautiful. We recorded it yesterday, so I'm really sitting in the beauty of kind of speaking about a relationship and speaking about it from a point of view so a third person can understand, because we're used to talking to each other about a relationship, but not necessarily for a third party, you listeners, to understand. So there's a lot of gold in there, and how we navigate some difficult times and beautiful times and made our relationship more beautiful. So, I will stop with the gabbing and let you get into the episode. But yeah, enjoy this one and let me know what you think. So welcome guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I always like to say, to welcome all people coming here today. And then once again, I've got a wonderful guest, a woman who I came across on Instagram. I think as the story goes, I was tagged in a post and we did a really beautiful Instagram live where we just talked about anything that come up. I think we talked about dating and love and sex and all those wonderful things from a point of view of men and women and how we connect better. But today we're going to talk about something a bit different. And she had a post that came up, a post, and then I think even a live that talked about this topic of masculine and feminine energies inside a business. And it really kind of perked my interest to a certain degree to my own personal escapades and life. But I just think it's such a really interesting way to start looking at business from this kind of polarity that we can bring into our lives and also into our relationships. So today I have with me Sabi Kerr.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Thank you for being here. And Sabi is a self-love coach. She's a female embodiment coach, and she does a lot of other things. She has some amazing offerings that I see her put out, and I'm like, man, I wish I was a Volvo owner sometimes.
You know what? I've definitely been called to, share some stuff for men. I think that's coming at some point for sure. Yeah, because this work, everyone needs this work.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I went on a men's retreat a few months ago, and I got talking to the guy that was running it, and he's just like, a lot of men want masculine embodiment work. He goes, but actually what they don't realize is most of the embodiment work that men need is feminine embodiment work. That's what will help them really move forward.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And it's like, how do we bring men into those spaces in the first place where they feel actually safe to explore that part of themselves? That's the question.
It is a question. You have to package it up like it's going to be all about purpose, direction, clarity, and all those things. But yeah, the dancing, like I said on that retreat, there's a lot of dancing, and it's something I realize I do to just clear my head and just relax a bit, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess a good question, a question I like to ask all my guests, is what was your journey to do the work that you do now?
Yeah, so now I guide people through various different pathways, one-to-one coaching. I have different group programs around different workshops and masterclasses around self-love, feminine embodiment, sensuality, soulful embodied business. It's been, and it continues to be, my business continues to be an ever evolving journey. So even my route into coaching just has felt like a natural unfolding. And I tell this story a lot, but I think I'll tell it again just because your listeners are probably new to me. But it ties in quite a lot with how I work and how I run my business. My life, or my work, let's say, from whenever it was that I left school and started thinking like, what is it I want to do? What work do I want to do? It's always been a natural unfolding of me following my curiosity and what was it that like my soul or my heart felt called to explore in that moment. So I was really into dance and performing when I was at school. So I'd been throughout kind of like secondary school, had done a lot of dance training and did that all the time in the evenings, and would go to classes. And when I was starting to decide, do I want to go to university and study something like academic and serious, or do I want to go to like a dance college and just dance full time, I had a bit of a challenge because I was also super academic at school, and I kind of was like, I kind of want to explore both routes. Is that even possible? Is that even allowed? And I think I decided it was allowed. So I just did a year at a full-time dance college where I was dancing for like 8 hours a day. I don't know how I had the energy to do that back then, but anyway, you know, if you want to do something, your body will make it happen. Um, and after that, I went to university and studied economics. So
Wow.
like total like other side of the spectrum. At least some people think it is, and a big part of my work is always about embracing all parts of you,
Mm,
um, like acknowledging that we are multifaceted human beings. We are not just the dancer or the academic. You can be both or all of the things, and they all get to be expressed. You don't have to push down one part to live the other part. So studied economics, and my friends after kind of graduating were going off to work at Goldman Sachs and into other firms in the city, and I was kind of like, oh, I still like I didn't quite live out the dance stuff enough. There's still more that I want to explore there. I deferred a place at a management consulting firm, like a graduate job, to dance more for like a year. I was like, I'm going to give myself a year. I'm going to get my dance teaching certification so I can start teaching dance. I'm going to audition. And I just wanted to kind of live the life of a dancer that was auditioning for a while. And it felt like a gift that I gave myself, because it didn't probably make sense to a lot of people at my university that were going off to all of these professional jobs. And I was just like, you know what? I do not want to regret not having given myself this gift of trying and of exploring what felt really good for me in the moment. And that's another thing I talk about a lot, like giving yourself the permission to explore and to try without being so fixated on the end result, on the outcome. And so had a beautiful year, challenging year, because any kind of performer knows like the auditioning world is pretty cutthroat, let's say. But it taught me a lot about putting yourself out there, about being
mm,
judged, about being seen, about being told no again and again and again, about being embarrassed. You go to auditions and there'd be like 100 people up for like 5 jobs, and everyone would watch everyone in the auditions, and you
wow.
might mess up in front of a room of hundreds. And so definitely developed a lot of life skills in that year. And after that, I explored. I went to that job offer for a little bit. Wasn't really for me. Like I think I knew. I think I knew that before I started, but I wanted to give myself permission to explore, to try it out. And anyway, just to fast forward the story, the following few years, I kept giving myself permission to explore and to try things out. I trained as a primary school teacher, so I
Wow.
worked I worked in London schools for a while, and those kids taught me a lot, let's say. Some more life skills, more life learning was done there. And I realized I really loved teaching, and that I was a really good
Mm,
facilitator, and I was really good at holding space. And yeah, if you can hold space for like kids in a London school, then like you're good. You're good
yeah.
anywhere. So I realized that I really love teaching and guiding, and um, didn't necessarily feel like it being in schools was going to be a forever thing, but I quite like the security of having a job if I ever needed it. Um, I was still kind of dancing in the evenings, and I
Mm,
set up this dance events business, where I would teach hen parties and children's parties and um, like wedding dance lessons. So in the weekends, I'd be working on this little side business, and then in the week, I'd be teaching at school. And for me, that was the first time I experienced like working for myself and creating something. And I really loved that, the feeling of having an idea and putting it out into the world and just being your own boss. And I really, really, really loved that. I ended up getting more into yoga, and I was like, I need to be able to teach this. And so I went to India, got my first yoga teaching certification. And when I got back, I began to teach yoga loads in London. And at this time I was supply teaching in schools, so I wasn't permanent. And I just started to teach more and more yoga in less and less kind of schools. And it was like the dance events business that almost served its purpose in helping me feel what it felt like to run your own thing and like start and like be your own boss and create something from scratch. So although, you know, like I'm not doing it now and I haven't for years, and it almost like served its purpose. Yeah. It helped me experience what it felt like to create something. And yeah, the more I was teaching yoga, the more I was like, there's a deeper layer that I want to be able to take people through, that's not just, that can't be done in a 60-minute vinyasa class in London. And I just began to get way more into inner work, spirituality. My own personal journey was deeply evolving as well at the same time. And I kind of was just like, I need to be able to guide people on a deeper level. And I was like, yeah, I think I need to explore what this coaching thing is all about. I did a certification and began slowly to coach people one-to-one. And from there until now, it's been a continual evolution, because at the beginning I was like, I'm a life coach, I'm a transformational coach, I help people transform, but I wasn't very specific about how. I then realized that everything that I was doing was somehow linked to self-love, was somehow linked to how worthy people felt of their desires. And so really began to talk about self-love and self-worth a lot. And then from there, it's even been a natural progression, because I began to bring my dance background a lot more into my work, began to teach more dance in some of my group offerings, and embodiment began to be a really big part of what I do. And then beginning to shift more into speaking about business also is a natural evolution, because lots of women that had businesses in the similar kind of coaching or healing space would come to me for the inner, the self-worth, the confidence work to help them with their businesses. And it was like I started to realize, this is like the biggest piece. How you feel about yourself, how you are energetically, how embodied you are, is the biggest part of running a business. Like, because you can learn the strategy, you can go to a 10-step to do this course, but if you're not feeling it, if you're not embodying it, and if the energy isn't there, it's going to be very hard to get your business to where it wants to be. So yeah, I think that was quite a long answer, a little chronological summary of the different things that I've done, and it really has been a natural progression. And I love that, because I'm like, I don't know what's next, and that feels quite exciting for me.
The unknown, the mysterious unknown. Yeah, I think it's beautiful how you went off and you did your dance for a year, and then you went to university for a number of years. And it's amazing how those two things, one could look from where I'm sitting. It's like the economics and the dance, they still live strong in your life now, in business and embodiment. They're still like really rooted in what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I always say to people. Anyone that's like worried that they've wasted their time in their past job or in what they studied before, or like, oh, I don't want to quit my job because I've been doing it for 10 years. It'll be such a waste, even though they really want to do this other thing. It's not a waste. That past job or experience or what you studied, Like there's so much there that's going to help you with what you're doing next. None of it is wasted. And I feel exactly the same with everything that I've done up until now. Like everything I've done in the past helps me be a better coach, helps me be a better business owner. So yeah, it all counts.
No, I completely agree. It's funny, as I say, I've just quit my 16 year in tech, and all the information I've amassed about how technology works and how technology is moving, like I can really see how, I see and interact with coaches and friends, and I'm like, oh, I see where, I saw that things were going to move online a lot longer before they moved online, right? Because we were forced to in the last year, but a lot of my work has always been online through my tech job. And even in the way that the internet runs, we're going to slowly see that a lot of things can be automated. A lot of things that we do and how we think can be automated in very, very magical ways, and just look like there's a real person behind doing this work.
Yeah. Scary.
yeah, it is. But there's some things you can never automate. You can never automate a coach. You can't automate feeling something. That can never be taken away. We'll always desire that as people to want that. Like you said, the 12-step, the 10-step guide, people can go and get that. But to feel, and I see this, it's not just in people's businesses, it's in how people feel about themselves. It takes their whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so powerful. And it's the feelings that people are actually desiring anyway, rather than the thing, the successful business, the partner that they love, all of the money. It's also the feelings that they think those things will bring them that they really desire.
Yeah. And they're not even sure that and often this kind of goes unacknowledged, right? Because we go, oh, I want to be, I want to be a millionaire. And you said to someone, okay, why do you want be a millionaire? I want to be able to do what I want. I want this, I want that. Also, you want freedom. That's what you want. You want freedom from having to do things you don't enjoy. You want to feel, relaxed and at ease in the morning. Yeah. Okay. That's what you want. Not the £1 million you think is going to get you there, but it might not get you there. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. I always love to hear people's stories, because I think it's almost more important than the information in the podcast, to be honest. Because you're listening to this and you think, oh, okay, where am I in my life? Maybe you're listening and you've just finished your degree in finance or economics, and you think, oh, I'm going to be in a career for the rest of my life, and it doesn't have to be that way. You get to choose and shift and change throughout your life, and it's really possible for you.
Yeah. And as many times as you want and feel that you need.
We get to choose the evolution.
Yeah.
So at this point, I guess change tact a little bit and kind of get into the, to the topic of the masculine and feminine energies in business. And I thought we'd start by, because there's probably some listeners and they're like, what does that mean? What does masculine and feminine mean? Is there men and women in all my businesses? What does it mean? What is masculine and feminine energy?
Yeah. And I like to, check in with like what they are outside of business, and then what does that look like inside.
I love that.
And it's great to remember that we're not talking about gender of like a man and a woman here. It's the energy that's within all of us. We all have masculine and feminine energy within us, and masculine energy is the part of us that is the planner, that likes structure, that likes to control things, that there's order there, there's power in both. Absolutely, there's power in both. And where the feminine energy is a bit more fluid, it's the creative part of us. It's the nurturer. It's like I'm I know they can't see the video, but my hands are doing like these fluid, like wave like motions. And really for us to be in balance and for us to feel like at our best, they both have their divine role. There's like this divine integration of masculine and feminine. The feminine is flowing, is creative, is moving, and the masculine's almost like there to to hold her, to support her, to provide the structure so that she can flow. Because without the masculine, she's just going to be like floating all over the place. Like she needs some structure there. And I really like to bring that into our business, because you'll see a lot of businesses are run in a very masculine way, like 10-step marketing processes. This is all you need. And then you'll see some businesses that might be run in a really, really feminine way, where there's zero plan, zero structure ever, always just running off intuition and what feels good in the moment. And I think when we bring them both together, that's when business feels really, really good. And that's when both can thrive. For me, I'm a creative, intuitive person, and I want my business to feel good. Like, it has to feel good. Otherwise, what is the point? I need to have the freedom to be able to create when intuitive downloads come. I need to be able to share in that way. Otherwise, for me, if I'm only sticking to my like year plan or whatever, that's going to feel dry. But having some structure there almost like supports me to tap into my creativity more. Having a potential, whether it looks like a launch plan or time to sit down and write content, helps me to also tap into my creativity and my intuitiveness more in my business. So when they're both there together, like they almost like both help the other. When you have the structure there, that gives you more space and safety to be able to operate from your intuition when it comes in. And at the same time, you might not be feeling 100% creative and inspired 24/7. So having some structure in place that allows your business to still operate even when that isn't there is important as well. So yeah, I really like to see our businesses as like, it's like a sacred relationship. It's like a sacred relationship, and we can also be like in a sacred relationship with the things that we're creating as well.
That's beautiful. And yeah, it is, you know, as you was talking and you were saying earlier, you said before around, you know, most businesses really run in this very masculine way. And, you know, when you've worked in corporate world, you see it even more than any place, right? It's just all very much, there's rules, there's regulations, there's how things are done. You do, you know, there's times you have to start and finish and all those kind of good things. And people feel safe inside of structure because it's you know, it's very masculine. It's known. There's a plan. You know what's happening. You know when it's happening. But actually, often when there's too much structure, then that kills creativity, right? And when we're working from a place of like pure creativity, we don't have enough. We don't know about the plan, the forward thinking, right? But you know, we can kind of harmonize those. I hear you saying it's like, you know, creating structures for your business, like that might be, you know, a lot in certain time for certain activities, for instance, right? Having the right software, for instance, boundaries with yourself around, say, when you're going to work and when you're not going to work. And even feeling like a boundary around who you're going to work with and who you're not going to work with. You know, that feels like, you know, the structures. And then I guess the feminine sounds here is like the flow of ideas that you allow for, you know, even the flow of clients maybe. And also I guess in there is like your own talent, you know, because that's not a structured thing. Your own talent is this feminine element that sits that lives inside you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to touch on that, like the ideas thing, because I'm actually right at this moment, just on day one of a 3-day little intensive that I'm teaching, especially about this. It's called Quantum Creatrix. And it's almost like we have to remember that if we ignore our most inspired ideas when they drop in because they don't make sense right now, or it doesn't fit in with our plan. Like if we were operating purely from our masculine in our business, it would be like, no, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit in with the plan. We're supposed to do this right now. We can't do that right now. And then we kill our most inspired, most creative, most powerful ideas that the world might really, really need right now. And so allowing your feminine to thrive sometimes means like noticing your environment, noticing what people need, and noticing what like is coming through you. And rather than getting all up in your mind and trying to overanalyze, overthink, actually land in your body and check in with like, what do I really just know on an embodied intuitive level to be true about what I need to offer right now. And so often we ignore those intuitive feelings in our business. It's like, no, shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that. People don't like whatever the excuses are that come up. And so a lot of the work that really is around getting into our bodies, and out of just our minds, and seeing what wants to come through from that space.
And also what I'm really hearing is like, if you keep suppressing those ideas, right, you are, for one, you're suppressing your own feminine creativeness, right? So
Yeah.
over time, when you continue to do that, you continue to suppress that, it won't express itself so much, right? Because it's
Yeah.
it's like a muscle, I guess. It's like if you're not flexing the muscle, you're not building the muscle, you're not using it, it will start to shrink and shrink. And it
Yeah.
will mean that, you know, and I always see it this way, and I say this to men that I work with, is like, if you really want your masculine to be incredibly more productive and create more, you actually need to expand your feminine, right? Because then you will have the feeling, the love, the kind of intuition, which will actually feed into your masculine kind of execution, right, in life.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect example of why we need both in the creation process. Because the masculine might be over fixated with like, I need to get it done, I need to get it out there, I need to get it finished. But we also need the feminine energy to actually help us birth the creation in the first place. Yeah. And for anyone that says, I'm not a creative person, or I just don't have ideas, they just don't come to me, I just can't get in that space, I believe that that's not true. I believe that we're all creative. It's not that you don't have the ideas, it's just that you're not used to listening to them. It's just that, and this is like what you said, you've almost shut them out for so long that you're not open to actually receiving them. They're there, you're just not open to noticing them and acknowledging them.
And I guess the obvious question to ask on there is, if we are in that state, you know, if we are, for want of a word, like hyper masculine in our business, we're all about doing, producing, delivering, and the ideas aren't there, what can we do to start to grow those ideas and make space for ideas?
So first of all, acknowledge that it might feel scary to slow down, to note it. And really, it's like I check in with like a few questions. And first of all, notice when you're putting stuff out and whatever your business is. Like, I'm just going to speak from as if it's a service-based coaching business similar to ours. Notice when you're putting offers or services out just because you think you should, just because it's what you think people need. Notice when you're just pushing stuff out to like fill a gap, versus this actually feels really good for me to create this and share this right now. And when we only put stuff out because we feel that we have to, because we've just got to, because we think we should, we start to lose touch with why we created this business in the first place. Like most of us that are creating heart-centered businesses, we're doing it because we really genuinely care about the work that we're sharing. We really care that this message gets out into the world. And so if we find ourselves just cranking out offers because we feel we have to, we find that we start putting out things that we don't even care about just to make money. We're just putting shit out just to make money because we got to. And then for me, we've just lost like the whole point of doing business in the first place. So firstly, for me, it would be a check-in. Like, why am I putting the things out that I'm putting out at the moment? Is it just because I think I have to? Is it just because I think this is what people need? Or do I genuinely care? Does this genuinely feel good? And so then do a little check-in. If it's like, oh shit, I'm just pumping this stuff out because I don't know what else to do, I would like take a little bit of space to connect deeper to your why for doing this in the first place, to connect deeper to why is it that this work is so important to you, is so important to the people that you serve. And then I'd slow down, and I guide different meditations, different embodiment practices, but whatever it is for you that helps you to get out of your mind and more into your body, do that. Whether it's dancing, whether it's other practices, start to do that a little more, and notice what ideas come when you're not constantly in the thinking mind space. Some of them might feel a little scary. Some of them might feel a little out there. But really, yeah, cultivating creativity is less about doing and intellectualizing, and it's more about actually what feels good and what needs to be shared right now. I wonder if I can find this quote that I found earlier. In fact, it's on my stories. I'd love to read it because it just landed for me around this is why I think so many people find creativity confronting, or maybe running their business from their feminine confronting. This quote I just saw today on Instagram, it says, creativity is inherently vulnerable. That's how you know you're doing it right and the creative process is working, because it takes courage to create. And so every time we're operating from that feminine, like intuitive creativity, like that takes courage. That takes such deep courage.
It's like, because it feels like you're kind of putting yourself on the line a lot more, right? It's very easy to, I kind of see this, and I can relate this to a lot of the work I do with men around dating.
Yeah.
Is that when we have a structure, we have a plan. One can hide behind a plan and a structure because
Yeah.
it's not really ours. It's not us. It's not part of who we are. Someone gives you, you know, I don't know, a 4-step plan on how to meet and date women. It's like you're implementing someone else's thing. So it's not personal. It doesn't feel like yours. It's like, oh, I'm just doing this thing. There's a depersonalization about it. You're detached, a detachment, right? When you're following
Mm.
through with a plan. But when you start to go inside, you leave the mind, you get into the body and feel, and you start to feel something and go, oh, I'm having this idea and it's telling me I need to run, an embodiment workshop for men. Okay, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
Mm.
that's not what I do. And now we're in the realms of the uncomfortability, but we're also in the realms of like, oh, I'm going to put this thing out that I feel is vulnerable into the world, and and then we attach ourselves. Like, I'm putting myself into the world, right, kind of front and center for
Mm.
the judgment, the ridicule, all those things. And that's when the feelings, the concerns, the worries kind of come up. But actually, what you're saying is that that's when there's also the magic that can happen, because we do put ourselves out into the world and people can connect with that product, that idea, that workshop, but then they can also connect to a far degree deeper to us as people behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that reflection. Yeah.
And I guess, what do you find with people that you work with? Is it, because often, just like in internally within ourselves, there's often a predominance to be in our masculine and our feminine. What do you find most common with the clients that you work with?
Mm. I need to check in with that. Because I've worked with both. I mean, I mainly work with women, but I've worked with women that are very in their step-by-step process. I need to do this, this, and this, but aren't feeling the joy and pleasure of putting their work out into the world. And so they're not in the energy. Like that is actually the magnetic energy that sells us stuff, right? When we're tapped into our why and our joy and our pleasure and our feel good, you can have all of the processes in place, but if your energy isn't there, it's very hard to actually sell the stuff. So I work with women that are in that space. But I've also worked with women that have all of the ideas and all of the things that they want to put out there, but just can't action them. That just for whatever reason, actually bringing them together into a tangible offering is challenging. And really, like so much of my work and so much of any business, but especially where your business is in the self-development space, like so much of my work with these women tends to be going back to the self-love work, the worthiness work, the inner work, looking at our belief patterns, looking at our limiting beliefs, our energy, like how we're showing up. Some of this stuff that's being shown in our businesses has nothing to do with our business. It's our inner child wounds of rejection and abandonment that are then popping up when we create our businesses. And so like I like to say, like, our business can be our greatest spiritual awakening, because it brings up all of our unhealed wounds, just like relationships do. I see there are many parallels between businesses and relationships, because they bring up all of our stuff to the surface. The only difference between business and relationships is, at least when that happens in a romantic relationship, it's kind of like in private. In our business, though, we're putting ourselves out onto the internet for everyone to see us. And so this fear of rejection, this fear of not being liked, this fear of people not buying our stuff, is actually public. So that's what makes it so scary. And that's why doing like the inner work, doing work on your own self-love and worthiness and healing is so important alongside running a business.
It's interesting you say that. It's like it's a really common thread inside the episodes I've been doing in the last couple of months, where it's like coming back to this idea of healing. Like everything comes back to this idea of like, okay, we need to heal, the childhood wounds. It's from dating to episodes about sexuality. It's like it always comes down to, it's like, how can we do that more so that we can create more, so we can expand? Because otherwise all we're doing is we're just projecting all that stuff onto business, relationship, work, whatever, and then reenacting these past things that have happened to us that we don't want to reenact. Really, we want to get away from. We want to stop happening. And it's just really interesting. It's really beautiful to see that, when we can start to do this work on ourselves first and foremost, it then really trickles into all areas of our lives.
Yeah, every single area of our life benefits from doing the work. Yeah, and I think that's why I started guiding the work of self-love in the first place, because it was like whatever women were coming to me for, when I was just calling myself a general transformational coach. So women would come to me that were going through relationship stuff, work stuff, like they were at a crossroads, they didn't know what to do with their life, business stuff, but all of it ended up being about the same stuff. So yeah, absolutely. It's like the power of self-love and like inner empowerment is that it ripples out into every single area of your life benefits.
Yeah. Everything, your relationship, your family, your friends, every level there.
Yeah.
And if we look at it from the point of view of, we have, the masculine and feminine, and often we have wounds in those things, right? We might be wounded in the masculine, right? We might be operating from an immature place in our masculine, where maybe structure scares us a little bit. We feel it's restrictive, like or we feel that it dampens us. Like, how can we then reflect that back on ourselves and go, okay, how do I start to heal that? How do I start to work with that internally?
Yeah, yeah, and that's a really great example, because a lot of people might feel scared of structure, like it's constrictive or like it's blocking them, when actually, like, structure can be helpful. Structure helps you get shit done. Like, if you want to have a business, like, there is a level of structure is actually going to be really supportive, really, really supportive. And so I think, first of all, it's just an acknowledgement that, and we'll take that same example, like, having the structure actually helps you be more creative. Like, more of the thing that this person might, like, be scared of structure because they like to flow all of the time, and they like to just always just operate on their intuition and where they want to go in each moment. But often it's like a check-in, that having that structure and that support there will give them the safety, will actually provide them with the safety that often is required to have our most expansive ideas. Like, we need to feel safe to create. We need to feel safe to be expansive, and in many places, like, the masculine energy provides that safety for the feminine to be able to thrive and to flow and to create.
Kind of creates that foundation, which I think I mentioned it before, is like the boundaries. Like, okay, this is where the boundary is. This is where the ground is.
Yeah.
Now, it's a bit like a playground. You take a child to a playground and say, don't leave the edge of here. We're going to be here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Go enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like that. Yeah. And safety is important. It's important in every area of our life for us to thrive, and it's not boring. I think safety has a bit of a bad rep for being boring. But actually, it's like, when our nervous system feels calm, that is the space from which we're the most productive. That is the space from which we can feel at our best to be able to do really, really incredible things.
It's also, it's like where we can experience pleasure when there's safety.
Yeah,
we can take enjoyment from something. It's like being in a business where you're running a business and it doesn't feel safe to you. It feels like any moment it's going to crash down, because of whatever reason. Maybe you don't have enough ideas, and maybe you don't have enough structure. But being in that, when there's no safety, it's like, it's just stressful. Your nervous system is like jacked up. You're always feeling like, what's going to happen next? You can't actually have any enjoyment of what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. When you're not safe, you can't be present. You can't be. It's exactly the same with sex and with pleasure. Like, when you don't feel safe, you can't be there. You're somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just going to be somewhere else, thinking about the fear, the worry, the anxiety about the things that could happen or not happen.
Yeah, exactly.
This is always the way. And it kind of got me thinking, actually, because you talked a lot about how you bring the embodiment in to bring people into the body. Do you find also having to do the reverse? Is that some people are just so like, oh, my body, it feels beautiful, this moment, I love this moment, and kind of having to go, no, we need to shift out, we need to bring you up into the mind and create some like processes to get you thinking and back up here? Or is that just very, very rare for people?
It's interesting. Maybe it's because the people that come to me know they need to get more into the body. So I rarely, that's rarely a thing that I've had to, I've rarely had to be like, you're too much in your body, and we need to get back up here. And I like that you said that, though, because I never want to discredit the mind, because it's powerful and we need the mind. And to actually put all of our ideas into action, like, our minds are absolutely incredible, and we really, really, we do need them. And if you just are only in the embodied, flowy state, like those incredible ideas aren't actually going to get action, and nothing's going to happen with them. So we absolutely do need to get into that space as well. But I think just generally with people that I tend to work with, it's like they need the embodiment stuff. Yeah. And really, I think that's like generic for most of society, because we're taught to operate from our mind space. Like that's generally accepted. That's the accepted way to live our lives. And so most people don't need to be taught that as much as they do being in their bodies.
It's kind of the assumed and taught best way to function in society.
Yeah. Exactly.
Don't feel anything, think about everything, process everything through your mind, plan forward everything and every detail that can be done, and this will lead you to have a great life.
Yeah. Just missing out a massive piece of the puzzle right there.
Yeah. Like being there, being in this moment, this one here.
Exactly.
So I guess, I think the thing that just popped into my head is like, if you were to, the listeners are here and they're like, okay, I get this inner marriage. How would someone go about going, okay, where am I being dysfunctional here? Like, how could they look at their business and how they operate their business and look at where the dysfunction's occurring, so they can start to put in some plans, or not plans, depending who they are.
Yeah, and maybe that will be easier with like a concrete example. So let me think of. Okay, so this came to me just because it's something that often comes up if I'm working on this kind of stuff with clients that have similar business to ours. Like writing and like creating content might be a thing that people struggle to do in their businesses, and you can go down the hyper masculine route of like bulk producing your content month in advance, having like, and say, let's give Instagram the example of like having 30 posts pre-written, pre-scheduled, ready to go. That's like super like masculine energy. And I want to say, and this is the most important thing actually, before I give this example, there is no right or wrong. For some people, that feels really good. Some people operate great like that. And so if that works for you and it feels good, please do it. Like, please do it. If that works for you and it feels good and you like, go do it. Some people are the total opposite and don't like to pre-write anything at all, and only like to share stuff intuitively as and when it comes. And if that really works for you, and if that feels really, really good, please do it. Please do it. So first of all, the most important thing is checking in with you and how you like to operate and write and share content, and what feels really good and true for you. First of all, most important. And so if either of those ways work and feel good, great. The issues come when you're trying to do something that doesn't really feel good just because you think you should. So it might be trying to only write posts intuitively, but really you're just not the type of person that has a constant flow of inspiration coming to you all of the time. And so actually you might need a little bit of masculine structure to support your creativity, because just waiting every day for the post to fly in is not working for you. Right? Like for some people that just doesn't work. So it might be useful to time block, to have like your Monday for content or an afternoon for content, and you might have that as your content creation time. For some people, that might be like, oh, that feels a little too restrictive. What if I'm not creative in that time? Maybe you then, for the rest of the week, you let the ideas flow in, you write little notes in the notes section of your phone. So when you do have that time to sit and write, the posts are kind of half written. And so you then just need to formalize them. And so really, like, I think what's important to know is there's really not one set way that you have to do things. It's about noticing what works best for you and maybe what mixture of ways might work best for you. But it's dysfunctional when you're picking a way just because you think that's what you're supposed to be doing, right? Like, if your current way isn't working, then let yourself try another way. So that was quite a specific example, but I just wanted to share that because I think that's something that tends to come up a lot for people.
Yeah. I know a lot of people really struggle with creating content. And I guess the impression I've got from you is that creating content flows for you really easily. I don't know if that's just the impression that one gets.
Sometimes yes, sometimes not as much, actually. And so I have a bit of a mixture of masculine structure and feminine flow. I like to set aside some time every week for, like, I tend to have Mondays and Fridays are like my creative days where I don't have like calls or stuff like that. So I'll tend to set aside a bit of time on one of those days to like get content done and written, and sometimes that looks like I'll sit down and write. Sometimes I might not. And I like to have that time there, even if I don't end up using it. And it's like almost like having comes back to what I said before, knowing that that space is there and having that structure might actually give me the safety to then flow more if I have a little pocket of time in the rest of the week when ideas come in and I'm like, oh, I want to create this bit of content. Like, I feel safer to do that because I know I've also got the time elsewhere. So I like to do a bit of both.
No, I hear that. And it's a really good structure, actually. It's a really good structure to say, okay, I've got this time over here, I've got this time over here. And it kind of, what I feel is like it lets your body relax. Your body can go, okay, I don't need to stress about this every day because I know there's some space here.
Exactly.
And when you've let go of that need to have to do, it also allows the creative juices to flow a little bit as well.
Yeah, right. Because when you're in that constant like stressed, I have to put out, have to write, like, you can't create from that place. So yeah, absolutely.
No, I have a very bad structure and I have a good structure in a way is because I have the podcast to go every week. When I edit the podcast, I pull out like quotes that people say or themes or things that people say that really hit me and I word them in a certain way and I stick those all in a document. So I've got, maybe 20, 30 of those listed. So each day when I decide I'm going to write a post or two, I just go to that and go, I literally just I start reading them and go, well, which one of these feels good? Oh, this feels good. Boom, I'll take that and I can expand and write about that one. But then I also mix in whenever I'm reading something or I see something on Instagram or watch a video, I'm always adding things into my notes on my phone so that whenever I get stuck, I'm like, phone. Okay, there must be something here I've written about the last 2 weeks, week that I can just pull out. And then you just, for me, it's a lot about just going, okay, there's one line, there's 2 sentences there. I can expand that into something more.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like you've got a system that works for you. And that's the most important thing. You get to create your own way. Like that's the best thing about running your own business. For anyone that tells you you've got to do it this one way, like, that is totally not true. You get to create the way that feels good for you, like we all do. And that's when things start to feel really, really good.
Yeah, totally. I like that message. You get to choose. It's a bit like our lives, we often think that there's this blueprint of how we have to live life because we're shown it so often, right? We're shown the business blueprint as well. You'll go on to, like, if you go into YouTube at the moment, I don't know how it is for you. When I go to YouTube, someone's always trying to sell me something about how to structure business or sell shares and stocks, buying, sell stocks and shares. And it's so easy to believe like, oh, there's only one or two ways to do
Yeah.
this. I have to, and if I don't do it that way, I'm going to fail. But it's so far from the truth.
Yeah, so far from the truth. Yeah, and how like liberating to know that we each get to create our own way. How fun.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I feel like that's a really beautiful place to wrap up, actually. Just knowing that we have freedom. We have the freedom to operate how we choose, not
Yeah,
anyone else.
absolutely. And that's when our businesses and our lives feel the best, feel their most authentic, feel their most like free, feel their most powerful, when we're doing them from a way that feels good for us rather than a way that we feel that we should.
Yeah, totally. Wonderful sentiment. Really wonderful sentiment. So I guess the listeners are probably sitting there wondering, where they can find you, where they can work with you, where they can hear more from you. That's the best ways for people to get in contact with you.
Yeah, find me on Instagram. That's always a good place to start. It's just my name, sabi.kerr. My website, sabikerr.com. There's a free, I think it's like a worthy bundle that you can download for free if you want to be part of my mailing list. And I have different offerings kind of going out at different times. I work with clients one-to-one, so you can just drop me a DM if you're interested in that. And then I have other kind of masterclasses and mini courses. The one that I mentioned, Quantum Creatrix, it's live right now, but I'll probably put it on my website afterwards. So that might be available by the time whenever this podcast goes up. So that will probably be on the website. Yeah.
And I highly recommend you guys go and check out Sabi on Instagram. Her reels and her videos are inspirational. The dancing,
Thank you.
it really brings to life the work that you talk about, the embodiment that you talk about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on today. It's a beautiful conversation. Beautiful to speak to you once again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And thank you, listeners, for listening. Please feel free to reach out to myself or to Sabi and just let us know what you learned from today, what you got out of listening to this episode, or if there's something that you're able to take in and change within your own business. I'm sure we would love to hear about how that may change it and shifts for you. But until next week, people, we'll speak to you soon. Say ciao, ciao.